coming up on episode 29 of the Keto Kamp podcast, 7 amazing benefits of fasting. When you fast, your body is going to turn on the autophagy switch. mTor is deactivated, autophagy is activated. Your body is so sophisticated, so smart, the innate intelligence will seek out the damaged cells, the damaged protein, the damaged mitochondria, and it will use that for fuel first. Fasting is one of the most powerful ways to give your digestive system a break for the first time in a very long time. And think about it, when you do that, all that energy is now diverted to healing the body and the task at hand. I'm a certified functional health practitioner who's on a mission to educate 1 billion people. I've been obese for most of my life. From rock bottom to the top of the mountain, I am passionate about studying ancient healing strategies like fasting and the ketogenic diet and curating this information on the Keto Kamp podcast. My goal is to bring you the thought leaders in this space. My name is Azadi, and I want to thank you for spending part of your day with me. Hello. Welcome to the Keto Kamp podcast. Thank you for joining me today. Out of all the podcasts out there, all the things you could be doing today, you chose to be here with me, and I'm grateful. Today's episode, we're talking about my favorite subject, which is fasting. I'm going to go into the topic of fasting, both intermittent and long-term block fasting, and break down 7 amazing benefits. I promise you, even if you've been studying fasting for a while, there's going to be a few things in this podcast episode that's going to blow your mind. It's going to be new information. So I'm excited to share that with you, share some research with you. I'm actually recording this on my birthday. I turned 35 years old today. I feel blessed, I feel grateful, and I'm the healthiest I've ever been, both mentally and physically. And for that and many, many other reasons, I am grateful. So just to give you a sneak peek at today's podcast episode before we really get into it and go deep, we're going to talk about autophagy, the regeneration of stem cells. What exactly does that mean? Do you have to pay for that? Does the body do it for free? We're also going to talk about energy diversion, hormone optimization, ketones. What's the role of ketones in fasting? We're going to talk about resetting the microbiome, how you have control over your DNA and how you could use fasting as a way to turn off bad genes, and so much more. So if you are interested in fasting, this is the episode for you. If you're new to the Keto Kamp podcast, I want to welcome you and say thank you for choosing this episode and this podcast. If you are interested in all things the ketogenic diet, fasting, all variations of fasting, performance, and longevity, then you are surely in the right spot. This podcast is all about that. So make sure you subscribe, leave a rating and review for this podcast. If you get value from it, that would make a big difference. This episode is sponsored by Paleo Valley. Paleo Valley is my favorite keto beef jerky and also just delicious grass-fed, grass-finished beef products. And they have turkey. They have amazing products on their website over at www.paleovalley.com. If you use the coupon code KETOKAMP10, you will receive 10% off of your order. They have the most delicious beef jerky. I placed an order last week. It came, and my girlfriend was excited about it because she was eating them with me. And I don't know if I should be embarrassed to share this, but I ate 5 in a row, and I wanted to continue eating more. My girlfriend's like, "What are you doing? That's our hurricane stash," because we were preparing for the Hurricane Dorian. Thankfully, it didn't make its way to Miami. It was really close, and she was yelling at me, "That's our hurricane stash." And I said, "Don't worry about it. We're fasters. If we run out of food, we're fine. We're metabolically flexible. It's just the water we got to worry about." So that was the conversation I had. Anyways, that was a sidetrack. Go to paleovalley.com, use KetoKamp10, and get 10% off. Another reminder for you, coming up on September 16th, 2019, that's a couple weeks away, I'm launching my 7-week Beyond Fasting program. This program is for those who want to learn about the ketogenic diet the right way, healthy keto, and then fasting and different variations of fasting, and they want some guidance, they want some coaching, and they want accountability. We designed accountability teams. I want to coach you for 7 weeks. I want to take 50 people through this program, and I already have some people who have signed up a couple days ago. So we have about 33 spots left at the time of this recording. Once we hit 50, we're going to close out registration, but you can reserve the next opening, which is going to be 3 months from now. But if you're hearing this in time, go over to www.ketokampfasting.com and learn about it. Secure your spot. I'm also giving away over $3,500 in free gifts for anybody who signs up in this program. I would love to coach you for 7 weeks. If you want to get all the amazing benefits of keto and fasting the right way for long-term results, then this is the program for you. We've had people lose over 25 pounds. We've seen A1C drop. We've seen fatty liver be reversed in this program, and just so many amazing things have happened. This is the third launch of this program, and I want to work with those who are committed. So if that sounds like you, I want you in this program. Go to ketokampfasting.com. All right, let's get into this episode all about fasting. The first benefit, which is probably one of my favorites of fasting, is autophagy. And you probably heard of autophagy. What it stands for is self-eating, autophagy. The Nobel Prize winner in 2016 won the Nobel Prize for his breakthrough research in autophagy. It turns out that we are made up of 70 trillion cells, and about 70 billion of those cells need to be recycled every single day. They have expiration dates on them. These cells, mitochondria, and even protein, just like the groceries inside of your refrigerator. So they need to be thrown out, and then we need to replenish with new groceries. And I've given that analogy before, so I'm not going to give it again in depth. I wanted to touch the surface on that. Here is a different analogy for you. What is the rebuilding process? If you are looking at a house, and this house is just banged up, there is mold, there's bacteria, just it looks ugly. Are you just going to build a brand new house on top of this old house? Or are you going to tear this house down, break down the walls, gut it out, and then build up a new brand spanking new, gorgeous, clean environment house? Of course, it's the latter. The whole entire rebuilding process is you tear down to build back up. That's what your body is doing when you go through a fast. There are 2 cycles in the human body. Either you are in a growth cycle, a growth phase, if you want to call it that, which stands for mTor, mechanistic target of rapamycin, which is anabolic growth. Think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, think of bodybuilders. When you are activating mTor, you are building, you are constructing growth, which is great, especially for somebody who's under the age of 18 or over the age of 65. You want building. You don't want too much, but you want it. And then the opposite of mTor is autophagy. That's when you are breaking down cellular junk and repairing it. A comparison that people understand is Pac-Man. Pac-Man going through your body, eating up junk and spitting it back up. But when he spits it out, it's healthier stuff, if that makes any sense. It's kind of a weird analogy. But this is the 2 cycles of life. mTor, autophagy, mTor, autophagy. When you fast, your body is going to turn on the autophagy switch. mTor is deactivated, autophagy is activated. And here is the cool thing. Your body is so sophisticated, so smart. The innate intelligence will seek out the damaged cells, the damaged protein, the damaged mitochondria, and it will use that for fuel first. That's where the body's getting energy and nutrients and fuel from during a fast. That's why if you look at the Guinness World Record for the longest recorded fast, 382 days, you might be thinking, how the heck is that even possible? Well, he was morbidly obese, so he had a lot of body fat, and his body was getting nutrients. It was going through that junky protein, junky cells. So that's the number one amazing benefit of fasting, the process of autophagy. You could activate autophagy through exercise and through different foods. I actually made a video on my Keto Kamp YouTube channel called 13 Ways to Boost Autophagy. And only one of those ways was fasting. Fasting, I believe, is one of the most powerful ways, but you have 12 other ways on that video. So I'll put a link for that in the notes of this podcast. So make sure you go watch that for sure. And then I've done other podcast episodes on the Keto Kamp podcast of autophagy more in depth. So if you want to learn more about it, I'll put a link for that episode in the notes as well. So let's move on to the second amazing benefit of fasting, and that is a rise in stem cells. We know that stem cell-based regeneration therapy, a lot of people are spending a lot of money on this. Thousands of dollars to get stem cells injected from them. But here's the deal. Your body does it for free. When you tear down a cell, like when you fast and your body's tearing down cells, it sends a signal to create a healthier cell. So the body's so smart. Tears down and it automatically sends a signal to duplicate, or not duplicate, but to create a healthy cell. For every cell that's gone, a stem cell that is produced. That's why fasting is so powerful, because it really regenerates your cells. It regenerates old injuries. So if you have an old injury like lower back pain, knee pain, fasting is a powerful way to heal old injuries. These stem cells, that's why athletes and people who have a lot of money who are performing, they get stem cells injected into injuries because it targets it and heals. Your body does the same thing for free when you fast. So that's the second amazing benefit of fasting and stem cells. And I go deep into stem cells during my 7-week Beyond Fasting program. The next benefit, which is the third amazing benefit of fasting, is a boost in ketones. Ketones are healing. It downregulates inflammation. Ketones give the brain 3 times more energy than glucose. And you feel like a rock star when you produce ketones. And you know all about this if you've been following a ketogenic diet and you're in the great land of ketosis. You know how wonderful it feels when you're producing ketones. So when you fast, you get a surge in ketones, especially when your fast goes beyond 24 hours to a 2-day, to a 3-day, to a block fast 5-day. You're going to see a ramp up in ketones. And to give you an example, when I was doing my 5-day water fast earlier this year, I was on my blood sugars, my blood glucose was in the upper 40s, which a conventional doctor might say, oh my God, you are hypoglycemic, you're going to die. But my ketones were 5.8. So my ketones were surging. And I was in this max autophagy state, which is where Dr. Thomas Seyfried has actually seen tumor cells, cancer cells shrink before his eyes when you reach this max autophagy. And I've talked about this before. You take your glucose divided by 18 and you compare that to your ketones. If you get a 1-to-1 ratio or better, you're in max autophagy. So when you do a block fast, you get a surge in ketones and you could actually hit that max autophagy. During my Beyond Fasting program, I teach everybody how to do that by week 6. So ketones, they protect the genes we're born with. They reduce cell membrane inflammation. They help our hormones communicate better. And they help us achieve the ultimate goal, which is metabolic flexibility. We want to teach our cells, which love fat because it's made up of protein, saturated fat, and cholesterol. We want to teach it how to burn fat as its primary fuel source, but not the only fuel source. So once we develop metabolic flexibility to burn fat most of the time and then burn glucose and sugar when we need to and back and forth without a hiccup, that is what I call perfect health. We know ketones are a cleaner fuel source than glucose. I want to compare burning glucose to firewood inside of your home. It creates a lot of smoke. Well, your cells create energy and it creates cellular smoke. When you're burning glucose, it creates a lot of cellular smoke. It's like that firewood inside of your home. I want to compare ketones to that natural gas stove you have in your kitchen. It produces minimal to no smoke and it's a thriving environment. So when you produce ketones via fasting, you get that in your cells. We also know ketones turn on the SIRT1 gene. Science has shown that. Research studies have shown that. The SIRT1 gene is a longevity gene, and we want that gene turned on, and ketones help you activate that gene. So that was the third benefit of fasting. I want to move on to the fourth one, which is something called energy diversion, and I learned this from my coach and mentor, Dr. Pompa, and a lot of this information comes from his book, Beyond Fasting. And if you want to get that book, go to ketokampsupplements.com and type in Beyond Fasting. It will be there. I will also put it in the notes. So I learned about energy diversion from Dr. Pompa. Essentially, it's this. When you're not eating, you have all of this energy. And instead of it being used for digestion, because you're not eating, it's diverted to healing the body and crushing the day, crushing the task at hand. A study showed from Dr. Zach Bush, who is a triple board certified doctor, brilliant man. He created Restore and Farmer's Footprint. You definitely got to check him out if you don't know who he is. He did a study at the University of Virginia, and they took college students and gave them a standard American diet meal, which is also called a stupid American diet meal. It was pizza. It was about 800 calories of pizza. And they tracked how long it took from chewing that pizza to that pizza leaving the digestive system, the colon. And it took 14 hours, meaning if they had that pizza at 8 p.m., 8 a.m. the next morning, they are still digesting that food, meaning their body is using energy, resources, and blood flow to digest that food. 12 hours later, up to 14 hours later. And then if you're not fasting at all, if you're not even doing an intermittent fast, you create this backlog, and then your digestive system gets overworked. And then what happens? Acid reflux, heartburn, bloating, all these digestive issues, diarrhea, constipation start to happen because you've just overworked your digestive system. And the analogy that I always give is this corporate worker, her name is Laura, and Laura she clocked into work at her job and she worked a full day, 8 hours. And now it's 5 p.m. Laura is exhausted. She's walking to her car, thinking about getting home and just relaxing. And she gets a phone call as she's entering her car. It's from her boss. Her boss says, "Laura, sorry to do this to you, but we have a project that's very important and we need you to come back in and work on it for another 5 hours." So reluctantly so, Laura drags her butt back into the office and she works on this project. It's now 10 p.m. at night and she's exhausted. She finished up this new project. She's walking to her car, just really ready to just go to sleep. And she gets that same phone call from her boss. "Laura, we need you to come back in for another 5 hours." Imagine this happening for days to Laura, for weeks now. Now, imagine this happening for months. This is what's happening to your digestive system if you are not practicing intermittent fasting. You are overworking it, it's becoming exhausted, and it leads to digestive issues. So fasting is one of the most powerful ways to give your digestive system a break for the first time in a very long time. And think about it. When you do that, all that energy is now diverted to healing the body and the task at hand. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to crush a meeting, a presentation, or you're just somebody who wants to crush their day, you have all that energy and you're directing it for the task at hand. So that's one of my favorite benefits, which is the fourth amazing benefit of fasting, energy diversion. The fifth amazing benefit of fasting is hormone optimization. This is a great one because our hormones are so important. Hormones, we have over 600 of them, by the way. They are the language of the human body. Think of that traffic cop you see down the street when there's a traffic light out and he's directing traffic. You stop, you go, you stop, you go. That's kind of like what your hormones are doing. They're communicating, they're directing traffic, they're sending signals to your cells. Your cells have receptor sites on the cell membrane, which pick up the signal, it goes into your cells, and it produces the job. A lot of people have issues with their health. They have weight loss resistance, and they just don't feel good, and they're getting diagnosed with diseases because their hormones are desensitized, meaning the signals are not being heard by the cells. So when you fast, your hormones become sensitive. And fasting downregulates inflammation around your cells, around the cell membrane. And then your hormones could actually get into the cell and do its job. And then you feel better. You produce energy. Your thyroid hormone, T3, which is a fat-burning hormone, and your glucagon, human growth hormone, all these fat-burning hormones that you have, they could actually get into the cell and you could feel well. The problem is not having enough hormones. So just taking hormones, it's not going to do the job. Now, there's a time and place for bioidentical hormones and all that, but that's not getting to the cause, because what it's going to do is just going to shove the hormones into the cell, and then eventually the cell will get more deaf and blunted. Just the same way if you have children, that you'll understand this analogy. What will happen if you yelled at your kids to go clean their room? Well, the first time you do it, they're going to say, okay, we're going to go clean it. And they'll clean it. And then day after day, if you continue yelling at them to go clean their room, eventually they're going to stop listening to you. They're going to become more deaf to your screams. It's the same thing with your cells. If you're just taking hormones, it will become more blunted and more deaf, and you just have to keep increasing the hormone dose. And the only person who wins here is the company who made the hormones. Here's another analogy for you if you don't have children and you can't relate to that analogy. What will happen if you run out of gas, or your gas is low in your car, and you drive to the gas station, get out of the car, and you open up the gas tank and it's locked? So you have your gas nozzle in your hand, but you can't get it into the gas tank because it's locked. So you instead just pour the gas all over your car, on the rooftop, in the driver's seat, and you drive away. Is that going to work? No, it's the same thing. If you're just taking hormones, you're just spraying your cells with hormones. If they're not getting into the cell, you're not going to feel well. So the whole point of me rambling on about this is that when you fast, your hormones become more sensitive because you downregulate inflammation around your cells so they can actually get into the cell and you could feel well. So that's fifth key benefit of fasting. The sixth one is going to be that it resets your microbiome. I already spoke about what happens when your gut is taking a break via fasting. Something else that happens is that your gut is going to starve down bacteria, good and bad. It starts to eat down bacteria, which is what we want because a lot of people have too many of the bad guys. When it comes to the bacteria in our gut, the gut is key first and foremost. It's one of the legs of the stool that if you have a compromised gut, it triggers autoimmunity. So you want to make sure your gut is functioning well. And we want about an 85% good bacteria in the gut versus 15% bad bacteria. That's a healthy balance right there. We want some of the bad guys, just not too much. Because the 15% of the bad guys, if you have the proper amount of them, it's creating a kind of like a stressor. The same way when you go to the gym and you tear down to build up, it's stressing your immune system in a healthy way so it could become stronger. So we want that healthy balance. We don't want just all good guys and no bad guys. The problem is that so many people have an overgrowth of bad bacteria. So when you fast, especially a block fast, your body and your digestive system is going to starve down this bacteria. And if you break your fast the right way, which is exactly how I teach it during my 7-week Beyond Fasting program, there's a complete structure to how to break this. You start reintroducing beneficial bacteria, fermented foods, prebiotic foods to help repopulate the good guy. And then when you're done with that, you have this healthy balance and your gut feels much better. So not only are you giving your digestive system a break via fasting, you're starving down bad bacteria. So if you do it the right way, amazing things start to happen for you. So if you're somebody who's dealing with digestive issues, you got to be in my program. I got to teach you how to do this the right way so you can take care of this. And again, it's at ketokampfasting.com to learn more. All right, the last benefit, amazing benefit of fasting is that it resets your DNA, turning off bad genes. What do I mean by that? Well, we cannot change the genes we're born with. Those load the gun. But our thoughts, our lifestyle, our nutrition pulls the trigger. When we fast, I mentioned it really downregulates inflammation. Your body's eating up damaged cells, damaged mitochondria, damaged protein, and it's getting rid of the junk. And then when you break the fast, it builds up new healthy cell, mitochondria, new proteins, healthier, thriving environment. Genes are like the light switch in your bathroom. You turn them on, you turn them off. When you fast, your body is going to turn off a lot of these bad genes that could be precancerous and lead to cancerous genes and duplications of those genes. It'll turn those off and start turning on longevity genes, healthy genes. These are just 7 of many, many reasons why fasting should be a part of your daily protocol. I love fasting. It's one of the most powerful tools that I've ever come across in my years of studying health. But keep in mind, the same way a chainsaw is a powerful tool and a chainsaw could get the job done, fasting is a powerful tool and could also get the job done. Well, a chainsaw could hurt you if you don't know what you're doing. Fasting could hurt you if you don't know what you're doing as well. More important than the tool is the person who wields that tool. So you got to know what you're doing. If you've been following my work, you have a good understanding of this. I would love to teach you a 7-week structure to become keto adapted and then moving to intermittent fasting and then eventually complete a block fast guided by me. So if that is of interest to you and you're committed to your health, then take action right now because action takers rule the world. Head over to www.ketokampfasting.com and secure your spot before it is blocked off. If this episode was helpful to you, please let me know by leaving the show a rating and review on iTunes. That makes a big difference and I would really appreciate it. Also, take a screenshot of this on your phone and upload it to your Instagram story or on your Instagram profile and tag me in it so I could reshare it on my Instagram story. My Instagram handle is at THEBEAUTY. BENAZADI. I'd love to also connect with you on Instagram. If you aren't subscribed yet to my Keto Kamp YouTube channel, you got to go. We are releasing a brand new video every single day. youtube.com/KetoKamp to subscribe. We're having a lot of fun over there. I also go live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and you could join, ask me questions. So get your butt over to youtube.com/KetoKamp. Lastly, before I sign off here, if you want to get my 12-page ebook, which is a simple guide to keto and fasting and burning fat instead of sugar, then head over to www.ketokickstartguide.com to claim that for free. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this entire episode through. I surely appreciate it. Thank you again, and you'll hear me on the next episode. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Ben Azadi, disclaims responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not accept responsibility of statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or non-direct interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.